What's up, guys? It's Damp, and I'm going to talk to you today about the Jester. As I'm going through these classes and really the final guides that I'm going to post, I think I'm going to start with the most underutilized, or what I feel are some of the most underrated classes in the game. So we're going to start with the Jester. The Vesta was a pretty easy and straightforward one, but you almost need one in almost every party. So we started with her, now we're going to go to the Jester. So let's talk about the Jester a little bit. So, why do I feel the Jester is underutilized to start? So, because the Jester doesn't excel at any one thing outside of what people assume is stress management and possibly buffs, I don't think he gets used that much. He's really great at stress management, especially in a camp. But when it comes to direct damage and dealing damage, a lot of people undervalue and underutilize his ability to truly be a damage dealer outside of just a buff bot or a dodge tank, as I see him most commonly utilized in a lot of other videos. So what I wanted to walk you guys through is a couple different playstyles and some suggestions on how to use him. So here's a guide. So I'm going to start with overall what he's good at. So he's great at stress healing. His camping skills are really strong, and he even has a pretty good stress heal and a stress damage buff that comes with Inspiring Tune. So stress management he really excels at. What he's not so good at is getting crit. He doesn't have enough HP to truly survive some of the bigger mobs, like getting hit with Tree Branch Smackdown from the Giant, or taking a huge bleed debuff from the Lobster, or anybody that deals huge crits. He struggles to recover at times because his HP is pretty low. He has a really high dodge stat, so he's great at dodging. Although I think he's kind of misunderstood on the playstyle and how well you can use him. I have a video that I'd recommend you watching, that if you don't use him offensively, how I used him in the Darkest Dungeon. But because he's so versatile, I mean, he's probably only second to the Houndmaster as far as versatility and flexibility. I think sometimes people underutilize those classes. So we're going to walk you through what I recommend as far as a playstyle. So as far as position, you can see here that it really does well in the third slot. But he also plays very nicely with anybody in a leapfrog party. So Crusaders, sometimes people use the Grave Robber. There's a couple other people that really excel in those parties and moving around. Even a little bit to an extent, the Houndmaster are fast classes that they can get pushed to the back of the party and they can adjust very quickly. He really does well in those, but he also, because he can move back 3, forward 3, and forward 1, he does good with really classes that struggle, like the Jester. Or I'm sorry, not the Jester, the Leper. When the Leper gets pushed to the back, or maybe the Arbalist, and they don't move so well, he sometimes can recover and almost make up for them. Not completely, but he pairs well with those. So he plays better and best in the third position, as you can see there, and his damage excels at slot 2 and 3. So keep in mind that if there's a monster size 2, a bigger mob, he's going to be able to hit that. And on bosses like Wilbur and Wilbur and company, for example, he would do well there. He's really versatile, and I can't really stress that enough. But it's going to lead to some misunderstanding. So commonly, what I would see the Jester use, what people use, are these 4. Or even this. Probably most commonly it would be this or this. So we'll start with the first playstyle, which is typically buff bot, which means you're going to probably run them in slot 3 or 4 and use these guys. And then depending on how else you like to play, you could fill it up with any number of these other recommendations. Then you have direct damage, which this is a must-have, and typically solo, finale, maybe not solo, or harvest, one of these. A lot of people overutilize harvest. I really feel it underperforms for him, but Anyway, so this is another playstyle I see people utilize a lot. And then probably lastly is almost a hybrid. Um, Something like this or maybe this would be used. My recommendation is going to be none of those. I'm going to recommend you take Finale. I'm going to recommend you take Battle Ballad. You don't take Inspiring Tune, and you're going to take Slice Off. And then you're either going to take Solo or you're going to take Dirk Stab, depending on the party you're bringing. So I would probably tell you this is what I'd recommend more. Depending on your party, you may have to even bring Harvest. But these are the three non-negotiables in my mind. And then depending on your playstyle, you're going to pick another one. So why do I choose these? So probably the most underrated skill in the game is Slice Off. And somewhere I hope if the devs are watching, they're smiling, because I don't see this used a lot, but I really feel that it's underappreciated. So the reason I say that is its crit mod is so high that if you utilize these trinkets, the Ancestor's Pen and the surgical gloves, he can be a monster for DPS. He's already fast, he dodges so he won't take a lot of damage, and then on top of that you utilize Slice Off, and I think if you spec correctly for it, he can really be an asset to a party, and I think he can go stride for stride with a Hellion. Not completely, but he's up there in the top 5 in damage if you're spamming Slice Off, especially with bleeds. So he is invaluable on boss fights. So how I would recommend you play this playstyle is you would start with Battle Ballad, typically. Then you're going to Slice Off. And depending on where you're running him, towards the end of the fight, you want to keep yourself in position where you can put him in the front row. And then Finale, knowing that the only attacks you're going to put after that are going to do hardly any damage. So you're going to be spamming your buffs again. That's what I would recommend. So Slice Off is so strong because of the bleed it puts out for 15 damage alone. I mean, if you're going to get 15 damage out of that, you know that that's basically like taking a turn. It's almost like you're getting an additional turn worth of damage. If you look at Harvest, 4 for 3 is pretty good, but you notice the damage mod, and then you notice the crit mod's really, really low. So that crit mod not only will help you alleviate some stress, but on top of that you're getting pretty good damage, and it's got a really high accuracy base in comparison to, you know, even Dirk Stab. Finale's even less, so it's really good. You don't have to really spec for even accuracy when you're spamming this. So that's my recommendation for kind of a basic rotation that you would follow with his skills. As far as the quirks, you're going to prioritize speed and dodge. On guard would be great. Quick draw is good. Like you see here, I have that locked in. Evasive would be a strong one. And then if you're going to run him offensively, you would take crits. So possibly deadly, precise striker or precision striker would be good as well. Just depends on how you want to play him. Like I said before, he's really versatile. So as we look at camping skills, this is my recommended spec, and that's because Tiger's Eye can be really good. If you're running a high crit, so if you're running like Grave Robber, if you decide you want to run the Jester offensively, if you've got, you know, a Bounty Hunter, or even sometimes a Houndmaster with Mark can do really well. But a high crit person, you're going to run this. Otherwise, you'll run Mockery. If you're just running through dungeons and you're really trying to come out of the dungeon with very little stress, you're taking Mockery probably. Because you can offset it by doing Mockery and then running almost every rose has its thorn, and it would almost offset itself. So for 5, you're probably healing almost all of your stress from your whole party if you're playing it correctly. Moving forward, as we look at Trinkets, I left them empty because there's a lot of different play styles. If you're going to run him crit and run him offensively, you're going to run this, Ancestor's Pen and Surgical Gloves. You could offset Ancestor's Pen possibly for another crit trinket. Really, that's what you want to focus on if you don't have it. But Surgical Gloves is uncommon, so it should be fairly easy to acquire. If you're running him utility, you'll probably take Ancestor's Map because he's pretty solid at trap disarming and scouting when utilized that way, and Feather Crystal. And then if you're playing him a little more conservatively, you'd run Camo Cloak and Feather Crystal. Those are my 3 recommendations depending on your play style. As far as diseases that can be beneficial to him, Rabies really isn't because his baseline damage isn't high enough to offset it. The fits can be, depending on how you play, because he'll get some additional speed. But typically he's pretty fast to begin with. So I don't know that you truly need it. You know, he's got 11. His weapon base is 9 to begin with. So that's pretty strong. So it's kind of an overview on how I'd recommend playing him. And hopefully this video will help you guys appreciate him a little bit more, because I think he's underutilized. But if you watch the video I have where I'm in the darkest dungeon with the Jester, I think you'll see I pop solo and finale, and I feel it's really, really strong in the darkest dungeon on the run that I did. I was really kind of surprised, because I really didn't use it that much, and finale was actually recently buffed, so it's even better than what it was. So high crits, I think you'll have quite a bit of fun with him. So thanks for watching, guys. See ya.